This section we are going to cover the basics of Python. The key contents which are going to be covered are REPL, variables, strings, functions, booleans, for loop and while loop, and comments. Starting with REPL, check the version of Python we are currently deploying. We can do the same in command prompt, and it shows 3.9.2. We see that there are 3 arrows in the command prompt being shown by default. We are going to type in a number, say 3000. We get 3000 as the output, so it returns back 3000 value. This is REPL, which stands for read, evaluate, print, loop. That is, Python reads this input value. In the evaluate part, it assesses it to be a number, and it prints out what it has actually assessed. Loop means to move on to the next input value. And Python can be interestingly used as a calculator as well. So here you can see we got 2800 by subtracting 200 from 3000. In this example, what Python is doing is that it assesses 2 numbers and then a so-called operator, which is the minus sign, and assesses this to be equal to 2800. We can do calculations smoothly in Python. There are other operators, just like in mathematics, we can use in Python as well. We have used the minus sign. This is another example for addition, or we can do small multiplication, or we can do division. These are the basic arithmetic operations we perform in mathematics as well. Then there are other operators such as modulus, which gives us the remainder of the division of 2 numbers. Floor division, which gives us with the quotient without any values after the decimals. So it gives a quotient value in whole numbers. This is floor division. And lastly, there could be another operation which is exponential operation, where we calculate the value of 3 raised to the power of 4. This is basically, if you multiply 3 4 times, just like in this example, it will give us the same result as before. Now, talking about the order in which Python prioritizes and evaluates to compute the result of operators, the numbers, is the same as in mathematics, and you can view it as the mass. Division and multiplication always come before addition and subtraction here as well. And just in case, if we want to prioritize one arithmetic operation over another, starting from simple example, as can be seen, it is first multiplied, and then after it has multiplied, it has got 83,000. This gives 80,000 plus 3,000, 83,000 as the output. If I want it to first add first and then multiply, you can put the first 2 numbers in parentheses and then put the multiplication sign. So now 3,200 into 400 gives 12,80,000 as the output value. We just did computations using Python. So let's create a variable which can capture the output value of such computations, which can be called upon later on. For example, if we create a variable stop, we can first check if Python identifies this word as a command or not. So this gives an error. Here, if you focus on this line, name error, name stop is not defined, that means this variable has not actually been defined yet. So stop is equal to 5,000 by 10. Stop is equal to 500. Variables like this stop, they are a very key component in programming here, as it could be a part of a different expression as well. Expression is anything that can be evaluated to an output variable. Variables such as the stop variable are a very key component of programming, as this can be a constituent of other expressions such as stop minus 450. The expression in Python can be anything that can be assessed to an output value. So here stop is a part of wholly different expression. Stop minus 450, 45 into stop. Now we are going to discuss strings in Python, which is basically a combination of textual characters. And if you want to use text in Python, we need to put it in single quote or double quote. For example, Talking Tom is a hilarious app. Talking Tom is a hilarious app. So the quotes helps Python to identify it as a string. Textual characters can also go through arithmetic operations in Python. For instance, this plus sign basically combines these two pieces of text together. Talking Tom into 3. This allows this text to repeat itself this number of times, thrice. And if I try to remove Tom from this text, just begin this with single quotes and then minus single quotes again Tom. So this does not actually allow us to conduct this arithmetic operation on text, and there would be other methods for doing the same, probably we will discuss later on. For example, if I change the string to it's a sunny day, you notice that it starts with the single quote and then it suddenly ends with single quote because there's an apostrophe s here. So this gives a syntax error that this is an invalid syntax and doesn't allow the tool to actually read this text. The solution around this is to use a backward slash to escape around this problem. It's a sunny day. It's a sunny day. Similarly, we can use this to get around if we have an issue with double quotes as well. The business advertisement was a complete fraudster in the recent time. So if you want to put fraudster, for example, in double quotes again, so black slash here, notice the use of escapes here. If you just want to put fraudster in double quotes, just want to sort of highlight this word here, you have to escape first from this double quote, as if we don't escape at this point, it will make Python understand that actually the string is supposed to end here. But no, we are starting a string again here, so we have to escape from this first quote and then escape again from these quotes so as to enable us to end the string with the double quotes after time here. Another useful functionality is the length function. Length function allows us to find the length of a given text. If I say dancing kitten is the most entertaining and comical app of this era. Gives us 67. This is the length of this given string.
Function is a well-defined and termed part of a Python code which is responsible for processing of a job within the code. It may or may not give back an output value. To understand clearly what a function really does and key features of the same, we can put to utilize functions which have already been created in Python by default. The first example includes the print function. Basically, it assesses an input value and prints it out. Let's check it out in the Python command prompt. We can use the print function to print string or number. Here we have used print function to print out a string. Diwali is the festival of lights. Here print has been used to print out a number value. A special feature of function is that it does not give back any value. It may seem that print is returning back a value, but it is actually not. Let's save the results of a print function in a variable output. And print the value for the variable output, which gives us none. That means nothing. Another built-in function in Python is the length function. It actually gives back output value in contrast to the print function. We can save the result of the length function in a variable output ln. If we use the print function to print out output ln's value, it is returning back an output value which can be clearly seen here. Let's create a simple function, simpfun. Please note, we indent first and the second line of code here and then write the print function. We use the def keyword here to define a function. Following the function name, there are no values within brackets, which suggests that the function will not take any parameter value like the length function. Then comes the colon. This function mainly contains just one line of code, and we always indent following the def keyword using tab. This indentation helps Python identify succeeding lines of code which always go together. We can call out the function simply by mentioning the function name. We can call out the function simply by mentioning the function name. We do not need to give any input value here like we did earlier when using the length function. Now we can change the previous function which we have created and add a parameter, first name, and an argument value. Let's call out the function. Since we are giving the value Siri to first name and it is a string variable, we have put it in single quotes here and called out the function simpfun. It is doing exactly as we have defined it when we were creating the function above. to print hi and then the first name. First name is the parameter taken in by the function simpfun, and the actual value which is given to the function, it is the argument. Variable first name is the parameter. Next is the scope of a variable. Parameter first name is created when defining function simpfun and is therefore ascertained to be known inside the function only. This variable is confined to the body of the function only. It is called the scope of the variable. Example where first name is defined in the beginning of the code and create another variable greet inside the function. Let's do it in the command prompt now. Let's call out the function simpfun. This gives us Namaste Siri now, as it was clearly defined when we created simpfun just above. The variable first name underscore customer is created at the header level and should be known throughout the program. Let's see what happens if we try to print the variable greet. Since the variable greet was actually defined inside the function, it should be able to identify this variable only inside the function. Hence, it gives a name error here when we are trying to print the greet variable that it is actually not defined. Boolean is an easy and uncomplicated kind of data. This can be true or false. There are several activities inside a PC which can be put down to a direct true or false. Let's start with an example for Boolean. Firstly, we created a variable don't stock and make it equal to true. Then there is the if statement, which is a conditional statement in Python. Thereafter comes the variable or expression, which can be set to true or false. If the variable is assessed to be true, then the consecutive code is run, otherwise it is not run. Let's play with this example and set don't stock to false and combine it with an else statement to see how Python behaves. This example shows that if you set the variable do in stock to false and use an else statement as well, a different text can be printed out using the same, as we can see here. Expressions in Python may involve one or more of the Boolean operators that can be assessed to true or false. Let's study this with a few examples. 100 is greater than 10, which is true. 1000 is less than 10,000 is again true. 10,100 is greater than 10,010, which is greater than 1,101, sorry, is greater than 10, which is greater than 1. This is as well true. 100 is less than 50, which is greater than 10. This is not true, as 100 is clearly bigger than 50. 1010 is less than or equal to 1010, which is true. 1010 is greater than or equal to 101. This is true as well. 101 is equal to 101, which is true. 101 is not equal to 100, which is true. Mango is equal to mango. And since each letter of both the strings matches consecutively, this is true as well. Here is a list of all the 6 Boolean operators: greater than, smaller than, greater than or equal to, smaller than or equal to, double equal to signs, which just means equal to, exclamation sign, and an equal sign, which means is not equal to. These operators may work with numbers or strings. The key points to consider in analyzing string expressions using these operators are that it is analyzed in the direction of the alphabet, as this can be clearly seen in the previous example. Mango is equal to mango. Lowercase alphabets are greater than uppercase alphabets. Lowercase a is greater than uppercase letter A, which is true. Alphabets are always greater than digits. Lowercase letter a is greater than 1. This is true as well.
There are mainly 2 kinds of loops in Python, the for loop and the while loop, which allows us to modify the direction and flow of a program. The for loop iterates over the components of an object separately as it is put to the for loop. An example of this can be for letter in hello, print letter. So it will print out each letter in the object, which is the string hello, starting from h one by one, and it will give us hello. Next, we also come across 2 very key concepts: iterability and object. So Python objects have a number of different characteristics, such as being iterable. We'll be going over these through topics in more detail in the next few videos. Iterable is basically an object in Python which is able to give back its individual component separately at a time. This is just a general format of how a for loop can be created in Python. For variable in iterable, next line you put the variable through some activity, and the punctuation or any symbols used, for example the colon at the end of the first line for variable and iterable, has to be there. Basically what happens is that when this loop is executed, each component from iterable gets allocated to the variable. Interesting data object in Python, which is list, and the list is an iterable just like a string. So can allow for loop to pass through a list, and it will allow it to go through each component of that list separately and yield out the values. List 1, it's actually created with square brackets and each element is separated by commas. For item in list 1, print item. So it deals out the value of each component of list 1 separately. List can contain various objects of different data types. It can be numbers, strings, booleans, and even other lists. These other lists, if part of a list, are called nested lists. Example, if I create another list, which is list new, so you've taken numbers, strings, and we can take another list, for example 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we have seen list is created using square brackets and each element can be separated by comma. How to get any particular element in this list using square bracket? So here it starts from in position or an index 0. This will give the first object from list new. The second element is given by the position 1. We can even perform arithmetic operations on different elements of a list. And lastly, we can even access the other list which is present in this list new 0. This is position 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So if we go to the fifth element, and fifth element, if we want position 1's value, it is 1. Similarly, if you want position 2's value, position 3's value, we use list new 5, 2, which will give it 3. And if you want to access the string element here, you can use a position 4 in the square bracket. You'll be able to even access the string object here. So this, we have seen how to access each individual component of the list using square brackets and utilizing the index or the position of each component in this list. The general format for creating a while loop in Python is this: while statement, conduct an activity. So it's not really like there's some activity being conducted. It actually means that we're going to perform something. We're going to perform a job or an activity. That's it. It will be much better through an example which will come next. So this actually means that while the statement is true, we're going to perform some job. Create a while loop. So we'll start with I is equal to 0. While I is less than or equal to 6.5, press tab, we print I, tab again, I is equal to I plus 2. I is equal to I plus 2. So here we are starting from I is equal to 0 and we increase it by 2 until I is less than or equal to 6.5. Basically, in the first iteration of the loop, we have I is equal to 0 and then we keep on increasing by 2 until this statement I is less than or equal to 6.5 is true.
We'll combine all the learnings and the topics covered so far in a short example. We can create a function . Here we have created a function pet which takes in the argument breed. So we use an if and an else statement. If there is a missing value in breed, it will print out the first code of line which we mentioned above. You missed mentioning your dog's breed. Else it will print out the other second line and then execute a for loop, giving out each letter from position 0 of that input value to the last letter in that breed. just added a built-in function input to the program here. It will require us to enter the input and allocate the input to the variable breed. Please note how we are using the indentation properly in the program above, and be very vigilant in the use of indentation. Comments in Python explain the purpose and function of the code and helps the user to comprehend the code effortlessly. It is not actually read by the Python interpreter. Single line comments or multi-line comments are fairly simple, and this is how we type in a comment in Python. This is a single line comment, and if we want to add more lines to it, then we can do so by just starting with a hash sign on each new line. You need to use words judiciously in comments and note down just the complex objectives. Keep adding comments regularly in your program where needed. Try to use comments very carefully and don't overdo it. These are some of the very key points to consider while adding comments in Python program.